One man died and 10 people were injured when a driver in London plowed his van into a group outside a mosque in an early morning terror attack. But so far, President Trump has not condemned it. Joining me now, Dean Obeidallah, the host of SiriusXM's The Dean Obeidallah Show, CNN political commentator Margaret Hoover, and Scott Jennings, a former special assistant to President George W. Bush. Good evening to all of you. Dean Obeidallah, I'm going to start with you because President Trump has yet to take to Twitter to condemn this terrorist attack in London by a white man against Muslims. And you write in the Daily Beast, you say, Muslim lives only matter to Trump when he can demonize us for political gain. And to Trump, we Muslims were simply props for his hateful campaign platform, not fellow Americans. Explain that.
Sure, that's how we feel. I'm Muslim, that's how our community feels. Donald Trump ginned up fear of us from almost day one of his campaign. Things like thousands of Muslims cheered in New Jersey on 9/11, which Rudy Giuliani even said wasn't true, to Islam hates us, to wanting to ban us, every Muslim's not on the soil, banning them from coming to this country. After the London Bridge attack 3 weeks ago, Donald Trump tweeted that next morning, 3 times that next morning, about we have to get smart, goes after the mayor of London, who's a Muslim, it's not a coincidence. After this attack, 0. It's a similar thing in Portland. There was a white supremacist terrorist attack.
Yeah.
There, 3 days later, finally, the POTUS official account responded. Donald Trump, he will demonize us when he helps us, but he's silent when we're attacked.
But Sean Spicer said today that the White House is sending thoughts and prayers to the victims, but we haven't personally heard from the president. And you say the Twitter account, regardless of what the White House or the administration, but the Twitter account is Donald Trump.
It is, and also sends a message to his followers, I think, that I'm concerned about Muslims.
Here's what's important to me.
Right, and I think that plays against his base. I think it would be so important, the president to be the president of all Americans, to stand up and do this. Also keep in mind one other thing. This is Ramadan. Every president since the mid-90s has had a Ramadan dinner. It's called the iftar at the White House. This is the first administration that has not had it. It keeps sending the message, we're not part of the fabric of this country.
Margaret, shouldn't the president be more outspoken when it comes to these issues? He is, as Dean says, when it's, you know, a Muslim attack in a different way. So should he be more outspoken?
I mean, there's no question. Look, Scott Jennings and I worked for a different kind of Republican president, one that in the day after 9/11, within days, was at a mosque in Washington, D.C. saying Islam is a religion of peace. Many people who support Donald Trump disagree with that statement, but the point that Dean makes is correct. The president is the president of all Americans, and there is a minority group, Muslims in this country, who feel totally justifiably persecuted. And it is upon the president, it really does fall at his lap to speak out against all forms of terrorism, not just terrorism that is perpetrated by Islamist jihadists.
So, Scott, you say that you are forgiving about what President Trump tweets because you say there is no criteria to trigger a presidential tweet, but he is quick to tweet when Islamist terrorists attack the innocent, but he seems to have a much different standard when it comes to a white male bigoted terrorist or white male bigoted terrorist targeting innocent Muslims. Why don't we see the same kind of outrage over these attacks?
Well, I can't speak to why the president chooses to tweet on any given day or not, but I would say this. We tend to judge presidential behavior based on what past presidents did. And we're really in uncharted waters here. You know, the previous president had Twitter but didn't use it as aggressively as President Trump does. He uses it more aggressively, obviously, than most Americans. I mean, the power that he has with Twitter is really remarkable. But there's no presidential template for it. I would say that Ivanka Trump tweeted about the attack, and that is not only a high-level White House official, but also the president's daughter.
She's not
but
the president,
she's also
Scott.
Someone who has a tremendous amount of influence over the president.
So here's
my,
she has a tremendous amount. Hold on, Scott. She has a tremendous
Sure.
amount of influence over the president. Why doesn't she just tell her father, Dad, can you send out a statement about this attack and condemn it? Not that other presidents haven't done this in the past, but simply because it's the right thing to do.
I think what we're going to find over the next 3+ years of this presidency is every single day there are going to be things that happen in this world that people want the president to tweet about. He doesn't do it and they'll be mad. And there'll be things he tweets about that they wish he didn't, and other people will be mad. We are really writing the rules of presidential Twitter as we go along here, and I think it's going to be virtually impossible for Donald Trump to please everybody with it.
Scott, hold on, Mark, hold on. Do we have to write the rules of dignity? Do we have of decency? Do we have to rewrite the rules of decency? Scott?
I'm not disagreeing with the points that were made. Do I think a presidential tweet here would be a nice gesture? Absolutely, 100%. I do, but I want to say that I think that the president is going every single day to tweet some things that you don't like, and he's going to not tweet some things that we don't like. And at the end of 4 years, we may look back on this and say, well, you know, maybe we shouldn't use Twitter as much, or maybe we should use it more aggressively. I just think we're in uncharted waters.
Margaret, go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, this isn't about a new medium or a new way of communicating with people. It's about what he's saying when he's communicating. He has a new way of communicating, but what he should say is he should stand up for the victims of all terrorism so that it's sort of equally applied. And think about the moral authority he would have. If, I mean, he could have more moral authority in what he hopes to do in terms of prosecuting radical Islamism if he were to sort of evenly apply his sympathies to all Americans and to all victims of terrorism.
Dean?
It's an extremely valid point.
If Donald Trump was actually open to having other tweets, there's another one he could send out. Last week on Wednesday, Robert Dargett was sentenced to 19 years and 10 months in federal prison for plotting to kill Muslim Americans in New York State. It would have been great if he would have come out and said, that's wrong. If Robert Dargett was Muslim and planning to kill Christians, I am sure Donald Trump would have tweeted about it and used it to demonize our community.
Can I get your response before we go to the break? Because Scott said that's a good point. I mean, you basically just said what Margaret said, that if he applied it evenly, then it may have more impact.
It would have more impact.
He's a Trump supporter.
Right.
And he says maybe he should be more.
He certainly got a long way to get there. The reality is, this shouldn't be a political issue. It should be, I stand against terrorism. If it's right-wing terrorists, Christian terrorists, Muslim terrorists, any terrorists, I stand against it. Let's hear a strong voice. You're supposed to be president of the United States of all people, not just your base. It's about time you start pivoting. Okay,
stand by, everyone. Stick around. When we come back, Democrats protesting on the Senate floor, trying to pressure Republicans into revealing details of their so far secret health care plan.